Okay, it's about 8:33 p.m. Central Standard Time. Today is Tuesday, August the 31st, 2021, and welcome to week number four, four of Introduction to Criminal Law. And as everybody already knows, my name is Richard Wright, and I'm your professor. And we're crossing over to the second half of the course for everyone to be aware of. And there are a couple of things I want to just let you know is that, first of all, once we cross over to the second half of the course, you will not have the opportunity to go back and to get the assignments that were due from weeks 1, 2, and 3, and I will not be accepting them at all after this week is over. So if you submit them after that, then you will not get any credit for points for that. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And then that already applies, of course, to discussion posts, because discussion posts have to be in the week that the assignment is due in order for you to get credit. So that applies to, as I reach over for something, that applies to your other assignments. So it's important for you to complete this course. This is the last class in August, and that starting next week we will actually be in September. You will see that. So let me share my screen with you. Give me a second here. There it is popping up there. So you will be able to, as I said before, not turn in assignments after that. So you want to make sure that you get your assignments in, because like I said again, the quarter is moving extremely fast, as I promised and said to you already. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at, let's do the student review. Okay, let's move this up. All right, so messages. You can see messages that I've sent out to you, and then one where a student sent to me about a time for a lecture. If you check you'll see PowerPoints for week 4 that were sent out on yesterday to you. So now let's take a look at the grade book. All right, so now I'm going to show you in the grade book the assignments that are due this week: obstruction of justice, written assignment, fleeing or eluding police, and the live lecture. Now, one of the things that I do want to remind you is that when you look at your grades and you want to know what you did wrong, for a few people that have, I'm going to show you something here. Let's look at the written assignment first. So you see there is the rubric. You can get it in unlimited times during the course of the week, and that the due date is this Sunday, which is the 5th. And then here is the actual details of the written assignment. So in part one, you're going to examine the type of crimes committed using this scenario. And then you're going to use the sample police pursuit policy. We'll be talking about pursuit policies. And you want to check this Supreme Court case as well. So in a minimum of two pages, explain vehicle pursuit and utilizing the information that you learned from your research, and answer these other questions as well. Remember, it is APA, which means citations in the body, references at the end, double space, not single space, and that it should be in the form of a Word document. So you're going to have to address each of these issues from 1 to 5. And again, a reference page and the APA citations in the body, and a reference page at the end to cite the sources that you discover. The second part of the assignment is to create a flyer. And to complete this, it's a one-page training flyer that addresses vehicle pursuits. You can review the statute that's given here and the sample statute. And then you can create your flyer from scratch using Microsoft Word or Microsoft Publisher. I would prefer Microsoft Word. I'm telling you this up front. Do not use Microsoft Publisher. Use Microsoft Word. Okay? Or you can use the template as a starting point. But remember, it still must be done in Microsoft Word. Okay? Now, what I'm going to show you is the rubric. And here is how I will be grading it. Breaking it up in the first two parts concerning the content of the paper, whether you examine the type of crimes and the level of achievement in there. So you'll get 10 points if you do all of this with the 2-page minimum. Otherwise, you're going to continue to lose points. Okay, under the bottom in the grade book, you will see my remarks if you don't. Organization and grammar. Paragraphs, not one single paragraph. Appropriately written, spelling, punctuation. And then APA. If you don't have APA citations, you can lose 10 points. If you don't have citations throughout the body of the paper, you can lose 3 points. So it must be from credible sources, no Wikipedia or things of that nature. That's how I grade the paper. And you'll see my comments at the bottom of the sections, so you'll understand why. And then create the flyer. Okay, explain the elements of the statute, and then, okay, levels of achievement. Okay, it actually goes with this. Okay, so you can see if I go over to the rubric, not the student view, but if you just look at the rubric itself, part 1 actually consists of these. And this is part 2, creating the flyer. Okay, and this should be 10 and not 0. Just like this is 10, because it has to be a total of 40 points. So it's 10, 10, and 10. So that's 30. And this should be changed to 10. So it should be 10 points. All right, not 0 points. When we set this up, we did not put the 1 over. Just be aware of that. Any questions about the written assignment for this week? Type in the chat box, yes or no. Okay. Okay. And if you do, you know what to do and how to reach me. All right. And then the discussion post. So the activities will be based upon these facts. And then in your initial post, you're going to deal with what we call the stop and frisk case, Terry versus Ohio, and address each of these issues in your initial post. And then in your reply post, contrast it with another student's. Remember, you must post first in order to see the assignment itself, or either see any responses that anyone has posted. And that's the way the discussion post operates. Of course, you know, this says 9-4. This is actually Saturday's reply post. Let me see what she asked. I think I know the answer to it, but let me see. No, you can use your agency. Okay, if when you say your agencies, is this an agency you work for or the agency where you live? Which one is it? Oh, okay. Yeah, that's good because then you should be, that should be a good, very, very good one for completing the assignment because that means you know exactly what that's all about because of you working in it. Okay. So the answer is absolutely yes. But make sure you cite your sources, of course, as usual. Anything else? Okay. And then, of course, your live classroom lecture. So back to what I was saying is that your initial post is due when? Anybody know when the discussion post, initial post is due? Yep, tonight by actually 1 minute before that, but yeah, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. Um, and then and so then your reply post is due on Saturday. Okay. All right. So those are the assignments. Let's go back to this. So now let's go to get out of the, okay, let's look at the course calendar. I like the month view. And you can see today is the 31st. Your initial post is due tonight. Your live lecture, if you clicked on the live lecture and it scrolled down, it tells you the link to where we are right now. I won't click on it because it will create a problem. But that's for people who are looking for it and say, well, I couldn't find it. It's right there. Your initial post. Let's go down here. Your initial post due tonight, live lecture. And then your reply post is due September the 4th. Here it is right there. And then your written assignments are due Sunday the 5th by 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then we're coming back to week 5. Okay, so there's no doubt about it. This course ends on the 17th, which is just 17 days away pretty much from today, and not the 18th, not the 19th, or the 20th. All right. So there's your course calendar where you can find that information. All right. Let's look at, again, remind students, again, because I feel the need to do it, is if you want to reach me, the best way to reach me is to text me or call me. I don't know the number. Go to the syllabus. There's my name, there's the parameters, and there's the phone number. And that's how you can reach me any hour of the day except the 25th hour of the day. Let's look at the announcement for this week. For week 4, let's move this. Okay, so crimes against government and public order we'll be discussing. And chapter 8, I provided you with the PowerPoints for chapter 8 in the textbook, and then go over the activities that we will go over as well during this lecture: domestic terrorism, obstruction of justice, resisting arrest, fleeing police, disorderly conduct, and free speech. And then I will share with you the key terms and then some practice. Remember what I said, and then there's a practice quiz. Those of you who paid attention to what I said, your grades were pretty good in the quiz. I don't grade it, it automatically grades itself. And if you paid attention to what I said, you will discover that the grade was automatically put in there, but you also discovered something else that I told you, and that is that some of the questions were similar to the questions that you had in the practice sessions before that. So you're through with 1 to 3. So from this point on, 4, 5, and 6 is what you're going to do. So got this pesky fly flying around here, which I'm going to get rid of. I just got him. Yeah, I don't know, for the last day or so, there's been a lot of flies that are down here in my office. I don't know why. There are no windows down here, but I had the same thing last night. I'm going to have to check around and see what's going on here. We just had the house cleaner come in. So anyway, you want to make sure that you get these assignments done according to the information that I've mentioned before. And then this is another place to find where we have our lectures. This too is the link. If you clicked on that, it would take you into the lecture as well. And then your written assignment, fleeing or eluding police, and then complete the mid-quarter survey as well. If you could complete that, that would be great. Appreciate that. And remember what I said: start strong, finish strong. And you know about my motto: adversity is the springboard to success. Okay, so you, as I say to students all the time, the deadlines are given several places throughout the module, and through the emails, through the text message, not text messages, through the announcements as well. Okay, let's open this up. So we've dealt with this, and this is another place to find the live classroom recording link. It brings you right here. Of course, though, after this, I changed this over to what we're doing now. The lecture that is being recorded will be placed there, and I also emailed it to you guys as well. Okay. Then this is the due date again for the live lecture, which we already know is Sunday. All right, so let's talk about domestic terrorism, obstruction of justice, resisting arrest, fleeing, and then disorderly. We got all that to do in the next 35 minutes or so. So what is domestic terrorism? Well, first of all, let's start with the term terrorism, as it says here in our module. And in the PowerPoint too, it says, terrorism is the unlawful use of force or violence against persons or property to intimidate or coerce a government in furtherance of a political or social objective, such as there's international terrorism, and there is terrorism that's taking place domestically. We'll break those down in just a minute. But there are many organizations. There are terrorists like ISIS, or organizations outside the United States, as you should be aware that the suicide bombers that ended up killing 13, I think, of our soldiers and injuring others and killing others earlier in the month, or last week, should I say, as the people were trying to get out of Afghanistan. ISIS is claiming credit for that. And we go back to dealing with terrorist activities a long time, and we'll talk about that in specifics now. But what you need to be aware of is, first of all, we have the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the DEA, we have Homeland Security, and we also have our local, federal, state, other state and local law enforcement agencies working to combat terrorism. So let's start out by talking about international terrorism, which is very simply the same thing with these bullet points. Acts dangerous to human life occur outside upon U.S. soil by a foreign terrorist organization. So September the 11th was an example of international terrorism because it did happen on our soil, but it was organized by a foreign organization, foreign terrorist organization, or ISIS, Osama bin Laden, to be more specific about it, and that violate our laws in the United States on the federal level, or the state law in the state where it occurred. And the purpose of this is not just to kill people, but it's like a ransom type thing to intimidate the government into doing something that they want done. It's a form of coercion, and it can be in mass destruction, such as September the 11th. It could be assassination, such as killing a leader, or kidnapping a leader or someone, government official. So the attacks that happened during September 11th, as I said, is an example of international terrorism because it was carried out on our soil by a foreign terrorist group, ISIS, okay, or Al-Qaeda. So now we move to domestic terrorism. Now, what is the difference? It says it's carried out by terrorists who are from in their own country and carry out the attack against fellow citizens, government, or any segment. And their gain is similar to international terrorist groups, that is to get them to get the government to accede to their demands. One of the examples of domestic terrorism occurred with the Olympic Park bomber, in which Eric Rudolph targeted anti-abortion clinics and resulted in 2 deaths and injury to others. But the one that people really know a lot about, is one that happened in Oklahoma City, and that was in 1995, where an American citizen by the name of Timothy McVeigh, and I'm drawing a blank on his partner's name, but the bombing was in response to McVeigh's feeling that the handling of the Ruby Ridge incident in Oak, Idaho, where a federal agent was killed along with a 14-year-old child. So what McVeigh believed was that the incident was not handled properly, and so makes no sense, but he decided to participate in killing others and teach the government a lesson. That's basically what they were trying to do. And 168 people uh, injured, killed 168 people and injured more than 600 men, women, and children. There was, in fact, a child care um, in the building for federal employees, and many of those were killed or seriously injured. It's one of our biggest ones that we recall here in the United States. And so I already referred to who investigates these. Um, the federal government, I mentioned the Homeland Security, the FBI, and other organizations, the CIA, and then your local, state, and federal authorities all work together. So to give you an example here, the way that Timothy McVeigh was caught was for a minor traffic violation, and he was apprehended in Oklahoma City, not realizing who it was. Eric Rudolph was apprehended, who was checking behind a closed strip mall and found him lurking in the area. So the federal government is in charge of these investigations and prosecuting individuals for terrorists. And it is important, though, that we understand and appreciate the roles that are played at all levels of government in dealing with these kinds of events. So now you know the difference between the two, and you need to remember those because you're going to be asked to deal with that in your exam. Obstruction of justice is next. What is it? Well, it means what it says. Lying, deliberately misleading police, or withholding information that prevent government from effectively investigating criminal matters. It can start with a false police report. Some of you may be familiar with an incident that happened here in my local area, the Jesse Smollett case. Are you guys familiar with the Jesse Smollett case? Okay. What about you, Jennifer? You familiar with the Jesse Smollett case? Yes. Then you know that he was a star in the TV series Empire. And what he did was he alleged that he had been assaulted by two guys wearing MAGA hats, Make America Great Again hats. And the police began investigating and searching for these people. Well, as it turned out, he actually hired these guys to commit this would-be crime, and he was and filed the report because he was using it as a negotiating tool for a contract for Empire. And actually what happened is that the charges were dropped against him because the evidence was kind of shaky. And in fact, a independent prosecutor was brought in and investigated, and the thing is still ongoing. And they're trying to seek to bring this case back. But the point of the matter is that, and I did a whole Facebook Live report on that a few years ago, about, I think it was like 2019 or maybe even 18 when it happened. But anyway, Jesse lost his job and all of those things. And like I said, again, he's not out of the water yet. But very, very, very interesting case. That was a very well, how should I say, documented and reported instance of obstruction of justice that was nationwide in terms of reporting. I saw it on all the major networks in television that I watched, the news. But the key thing is that when you, for example, commit obstruction of justice, you can do it by this lying. Now, if you are lying under oath, where you see this lady raising her hand, where she either swears or affirms, when a person willfully and unlawfully, after taking the oath, lies, that's called perjury, and that can send you to jail. And it has sent a number of people to jail where it's discovered. It also has happened in congressional hearings, other government type hearings as well. The key thing is that in the oath that you take when you particularly testify in court, you do solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God. That's kind of like the line that's given. And once you do that, anything you say that turns out to be a lie later, you can be indicted and charged with perjury. And the reason for that is because you're misleading the parties who are investigating these crimes. Okay. Now, obstruction of justice can also occur, and this was right here, all about what I just got through talking about, misleading the police. Since people are not required to talk to the police, I used to tell my clients and people that I knew, don't talk to the police unless your attorney is present, because the Fifth Amendment provides the people with the right to remain silent, which you also know about because of the infamous Miranda versus Arizona case. However, if you do decide to answer it, you have to answer it correctly and not lie. You can even be charged with obstruction of justice based on statutes in jurisdictions where if you do things to conceal evidence or alter evidence to hinder the apprehension of a person, such as hiding a person in your house or something like that. You can learn more about that if you read this great article, says of Orlando gunman's wife. In some states, obstruction laws also include a requirement that people must identify themselves when requested by the police. Some states, and Ohio, for example, says that no person who is in a public area shall refuse to disclose their name, address, or date of birth when requested by law enforcement who suspects that individual is committing, has committed, or is about to commit a criminal offense. And the person witnessing any of the following: an offense of violence, excuse me, that would be a felony offense that results in substantial risk of serious physical harm, attempts or conspiracy to commit or complicity in committing any of the offenses previously mentioned. And the key thing that you need to be aware is that it just happens that this is the infamous state where the famous Terry versus Ohio case, which you'll need to know about today in terms of completing your assignments. We call that also the famous stop and frisk case, okay, where a person can be able to be stopped if a person, police officer or law enforcement officer, reasonably believes that a person is either committing a crime, has committed a crime, or is about to commit a crime. And they can stop that person very briefly with temporary questioning, and that person is not under arrest by that stop. It's called a Terry stop, and it came out because of that case itself. And in that instance, if you're asked for ID, produce ID, and otherwise you're violating the law. Okay. So there's a question that might come up. I'll only say might come up on your quiz regarding to this specific issue. I've given it to you, explained it to you. Any questions about it? Okay, very good. All right, because it's pretty straightforward. All right, so we know about obstruction of justice, resisting arrest. So what exactly is resisting arrest? Well, you see a picture of what considered be um, resisting arrest. If a person is under arrest and the person must know they're under arrest, then they are in control of the police. Just for your own information, and I'm going to see if you know the answer to this question, and you might not. When is a person under arrest? There's a very simple, straightforward answer to that. When is a person under arrest? Well, let me ask it another way. Is it necessary for a person to be under arrest to be told the words, "you're under arrest," for them to be under arrest? Is that required? Lynn says yes. Okay. I know you're the expert, Jennifer. So you got it. And that is exactly what I was about to say. When your liberty to move is freely restricted, that is when you are under arrest. You do not have to use the term "you're under arrest." Okay, let me give you some examples. You come into my house and I let you come in, you know, and you start to talk to me and you're asking me a few questions. And at that particular time, what happens is I'm surrounded by police. Am I under arrest then? The answer is you're wrong on this one. Because if you are surrounded, it is implicit custody. It, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Because your liberties are taken away. If you're surrounded by the police and they're talking to you, questioning you, why are they surrounding you? To prevent you from leaving, right? Okay, so now you see why I said that? Does that make sense? Okay. So it says if a person uh, um, can be addressed, it can either be explicit or implicit. Explicit is very clear, like saying you're under arrest and directs the person, hands behind their back and so forth. So that's explicit. Implicit is less clear and concern what a reasonable person would believe at the time of a police encounter. So when individuals reasonably believe they are not free to leave, just as you said earlier, during a police encounter, they may perceive that they are under arrest. Okay? Facts and circumstances related to implicit arrest are evaluated, of course, on a case-by-case basis. Now, here's the one I was using. For example, if a detective had been invited inside the home of a suspect to speak with him, and they spoke face to face at the kitchen table, this wouldn't be an arrest or be considered custodial questioning. However, if the officer brought 4 uniformed officers with him and surrounded the suspect on all 4 sides, creating a perception that he wasn't free to move, this would be perceived as an arrest. That's the example I was giving, because I use that all the time whenever I do this lecture. So it makes sense what I just said. And if you stop and think about it, you say, oh yeah, okay, yeah, you're right. Because remember you said it's when your liberty is taken away. Well, is your liberty taken away in this scenario where this officer brought 4 other officers who surrounded suspect? Is his liberty taken away? Yep. So that's the point. And sometimes this gets kind of tricky, but in reality, there's a lot of what I call good common sense involved in dealing with that too. So here's how resisting can take place. From assaultive behavior, such as punching or kicking or anything to create tension that tries to put a person under arrest. In many states, excuse me, resisting arrest and obstruction statutes are in the same body of law. For example, in Tennessee, it gives you an example. Okay, now let's say this. Because this was an argument that was attempted in the Derek Chauvin case, to say that George Floyd was in handcuffs, but that he was still moving around, to try to argue resisting arrest. Nobody bought that because of the knee on the neck, of course. But my whole point in a nutshell, that we had a discussion in my classes that I had before this, that it was quite clear in the situation there that he was under control by law enforcement. Therefore, going beyond that was unnecessary, especially that knee to the neck thing. That's what landed him in jail. And that's what caused excessive force to be successfully proven beyond a reasonable doubt by the prosecution. So the key thing is that even in force cases, and Jennifer, you probably know about this, is that you must use the same amount of force necessary to operate and obtain control of a suspect. And that's it, right or wrong. Yep. And if you go beyond that, such as, unfortunately, we've seen this, and see, I tell my students, I said, remember, we're in a different era. When I started practicing, we got cameras all over the place. And somebody said, well, see, that creates a problem for police. What problem does it create? Because it means you should be doing it well, even when no one else is watching. It's like ethics and character. You should do the right thing, even if nobody can see you. No human being, that is. And the point of the matter is that you're held to that standard, and it's important. I'm sure, and the reason why I think that most law enforcement people love the body cams is because it is protection, not just for the person who is the suspect, but it's real good protection for the officer. And it could be a good source of evidence in the event of a civil suit of a person not telling exactly what happened. So I certainly would feel like law enforcement people should welcome body cams or any kind of cams that, I don't think there should ever be laws passed because people who are videotaping police activity are not interfering in that police officer's work. I don't see how. Someone have to show me. And all of my friends who are law enforcement people that I've talked to generally agree. Now, what one person did try to say is that, well, the cameras may distract them. It's like, give me a break with that statement. No, not at all. You're on. There used to be a show years ago called Candid Camera when I was a kid coming up with a guy named Alan Funt, and Candid Camera would catch you, when you're not knowing you're being watched, and they would put funny things on, like the world's funniest video type things, and they would put them on. Well, this is what's happening here. You're on Candid Camera. So anyway, um, that's that's enough on that area there. I think everybody's got my drift on resisting arrest. As I heard one person once say, resisting arrest is something that you know it when you see it, and when there is no resisting of arrest, you can't create the environment. So if you're kicking somebody while they're handcuffed and they're going to kick back, that's not going to be a good argument for resisting arrest, because you're going excessively in terms of force, and you're probably I'd go 99.99 and probably 100% that you're violating the policies of that department. Okay. All right. I got a few students that are in uh, St. Paul in the police. They're in part of the police force there. I got two students to be exact, and one, well, they're former students now. And this was during the Chauvin case, and they were talking about, we clearly denounced the activities of that officer, and no officer could hold a job in our town if they did something like that, so, or even close to it. All right. So now let's talk about fleeing police. All right. Now, there's a picture right there you see of a person running away. And it appears that that officer is about to reach for his gun. Now, is that good or is that bad? Just looking at that picture. And it probably is not good. However, if that individual had a weapon on them, then it's okay. But we don't have enough information here. But let's just say the police officer doesn't want to chase him, so they're going to shoot him, or either shoot the man. Anybody know the case of Garner versus Tennessee? I bet you know that one, Jennifer, don't you? You know about Garner versus Tennessee? You don't know about that one? It's the United States Supreme Court case that deals with shooting individuals. I think is that included here? Let me scroll down. That's Scott versus Harris. No. Okay. That says that the only time you can do something like that is if the person is a threat, has a weapon, or is in the process of committing a dangerous felony. But when they're retreating and running, like this guy, look like he's running into the wilderness, the question is, okay, maybe we should shoot him because he might get away. That's not a good enough reason. Uh, and and the fact of the matter is, I don't know if this guy has a stun gun or not, but we don't even have to go with uh, whether to use a stun gun or the handgun in a situation like this. Just like that young lady shot Dante Wright in Minnesota, um, is in peril of going to jail because she used a gun when she said that she intended on using a taser. But there's a whole lot of people that are backtracking on that one because of the training that officers have, and so forth. So, and I think if I'm right, that the right side of a person, the standard is to have the firearm and then the taser on the left. Am I right? You know about that? Either of you? Jennifer, do you know about that? Okay. Do you know about it, Jennifer? Okay. You got your hand up. Okay. Did you want to say something? You can go ahead. Okay. You're going to say something, or you're saying, am I right? Let me see. Okay. Let me see. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so restate the question, please.
You sound like you're in court.
I,
The question that I was asking is, isn't it generally the the practice that the firearm is on the right and that the stun is on the left?
so yes, however, um, it's kind of like baseball. So if you are right-handed but you shoot with your left, it's all about the comfort level and how you adjust your belt. However, you are responsible for knowing the location of your weapons and where is your gun, where is your taser. You're responsible for knowing your memory management of your tool belt.
And you know what? That is exactly uh, the thing. But I think that statistically, you have more people who use their right as a lead than left.
It is
And and go ahead.
the one incident where the officer thought she grabbed her taser, but she grabbed her gun. Everybody in our department was screaming, how do you
Yeah, yeah,
know, how did you not know it was not your taser?
yeah. Yeah, and that was
And
my and see you answered my question. My statement is that the officer is based on training. Hell, it's a different weight, it's a different color, right? But it's a totally different weight. I've held tasers and I've held firearms. When I was a police officer, we didn't have tasers, but later on, as an attorney, I had to deal with. But yeah, they're totally different color now. But at first, you're now that was one of the earlier issues. But the weight was always, even the glockenspiel. That's what we call the Glock. You know about the Glock, right? Uh, the Glock is a light firearm, but it's heavier than the taser. Because the taser is closer to a water gun. You know. So, but yeah, you're right. The color came about to clarify all of that. So that's an excellent point. Thanks for. That's why I like having students in class who actually work in the area because they can confirm some of the things that we have already in our module. But the point of the matter is here is that if you Garner uh, versus Tennessee, you read that case and you'll see a little bit more about what I'm talking about. So we got a little bit more to go. Um, Fleeing includes running away. One is inherently more dangerous than the other. And foot chases often result in some injuries. However, the most serious type of pursuits are the ones that we're going to focus on now, and that's vehicle pursuits. In vehicle pursuits, or when an individual eludes a police in a vehicle, there are all kinds of maneuvers that we learned when I was in the academy, like the pit, and we'll talk about that in a minute, and about how to um, stop individuals, because the vehicle itself is a dangerous weapon uh, if it's operating at a high rate of speed, particularly in urban areas or highly populated areas. It can also be the same in densely populated areas, but you're more likely to come in contact with a ped or pedestrian in a heavy traveled urban area then. So the key that law enforcement officers are taught is to make sure that they consider a number of things and operate under what we call due regard for the care and safety of everybody involved. And here are some points that we deal with in terms of pursuing individuals that officers, as it says, must consider. The time of the day. So if it's rush hour or a time when a lot of people are out, then you have to stop and determine whether that's the best way to get after a person. Excuse me. Volume of pedestrian and vehicular traffic. We kind of already talked about that. The nature of the offense. The person ran out of a store, stole a loaf of bread, got in their car, and drove off. Do you have a high-speed chase after that kind of a person? Probably not. I'm answering that one. That's right. That's right. That's the way I would say it too. Absolutely not, because that's crazy. Okay. But let's say, for example, if that person instead had robbed the place with a gun and um, ran out, or even worse, shot somebody, then in that case, it would be justified. But you still have to consider the circumstances of there. You can uh, I I can say this, that in high speed chases, you increase the chances of innocent people walking the streets, walking their dog, walking by themselves, holding a conversation, standing on the curb, or being killed. So you have to stop and look at those. So the weather and road conditions, speeds in the vicinity in the area, and then how well the officer is able to drive. And so there are statutes and policies in place that incorporate these things that we just got through talking about. And then this is a sample statute that I'm not going to go over, but you can just click on it, download it, and then you'll have it for your research there. Now it says that once you are in pursuit, you still must be conscious of the due regard aspects. And the question is, the balance is the pursuit more important than an apprehension, than discontinuing or terminating it may be necessary. So so we use techniques that they taught us that are what we call forced to stop and induced to stop techniques. So here we go with the forced to stop techniques. Ramming the vehicle, using a roadblock. That's one of the most important ones that we did. I've been involved in a number of those, to prevent an escape and cause the fleeing suspect to stop, or they would have to strike other vehicles. Trust me, there are times when we've had to scatter because they don't care. If they're not going to drive off the road, the shortest distance between 2 points is straight and to go right through there. So we try to strategically set the cars there. And so there's some real serious things that can take place in those scenarios. So when you take a look at this case, the Supreme Court case of Scott versus Harris, you'll get an idea about where we are with the law in terms of dealing with that now. All right. So then, as far as techniques that they give us, we talked about, I mentioned forcing to stop somebody. PIT, it's called pursuit intervention technique, and you can see it right here, is that this is the targeted car. And so what the policeman is doing is going to try to get them to hit this part of the vehicle so that their vehicle turns to the side and around. That's to get them to spin. Another very popular one is stop sticks. You know anything about stop sticks? Well, if you never had to deal with police with stop sticks, you drive into a parking lot and then you try to get out without paying in some of these lots, and you try to go over it. You'll have flat tires. Well, that's the whole thing these stop sticks do, is they cause flats to happen, and then it slows the vehicles down as well. All right. Partial roadblocks, that's what I was talking about a few minutes. Here's one called boxing in. Boxing in. Everybody remember the infamous, even if you're not old enough to remember it, but you've probably seen it, the infamous O.J. Simpson, I wouldn't call it high-speed chase. Okay. That's a clear example of boxing in. You know, the police were in the front, police were on each side and behind. So it was no way that he was going to get away. So that's one of the safest ones. Of course, though, it can be dangerous too if the person has a weapon and, you know, someone can get shot. All right. So those are just some of the things. All right. Moving right along to the final topic. And a few minutes over, bear with me here. Disorderly conduct. I always laugh about this one because what it basically is you're out of control. You're creating a disturbance. It could be done where I have the freedom of speech. However, I cannot use my speech to create an obvious violent response from someone. And if, for example, it says every person who maliciously or willfully disturbs the peace of any neighborhood, family, or person by loud or unusual noise, by tumultuous or offensive conduct, by threatening, introducing, quarreling, challenging, or fighting. And these are all different things that let you know that it's something that's not right going on, okay? That can create a problem there and be used as disorderly conduct. And if it elevates to the level where it is defined as a riot, it says a tumultuous disturbance of the peace by 3 or more assembling together. Now that's what Black's Law Dictionary. Black's Law Dictionary is a dictionary that we in law school used. I have one somewhere in storage, but it gives the definition of a riot. So the bottom line is that you're pretty much able to say things, but even when you have protests and marches, you're still held to the standard of getting permits and things of that nature. And then here's a whole thing that you can deal with free speech and disorderly conduct on your own time there. Okay, so now I want to just quickly go over and show you what can begin to help you. Note all of these terms, we've mentioned them or talked about them today. So you want to make sure you're familiar with these for your midterm quiz coming up. Practice for free speech. Okay, I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to see if we can do a couple of these. Here we go. Okay. A man is walking in the middle of the streets in a busy downtown entertainment district yelling profanities. Is this free speech or disorderly conduct? Okay. Disorderly? Okay, what was that first one? I thought I saw someone say free speech. Did you say free speech? You say free speech. Okay, he's walking down the middle of the street in a busy downtown entertainment district yelling profanities. Let me see if it's disorderly conduct, which it tends to be. Because the man used the language in a public place and his actions were likely, oh, okay, were likely to cause a breach of the peace. So you have to think of what his actions would do. All right. Abortion activists are standing on a street corner holding signs of aborted fetuses that some citizens find as offensive. Is this considered free speech or disorderly conduct? I didn't ask you whether you agree with it or like it. Yeah, it's free speech. Yeah, because that person has a constitutional right to express that, because it's a peaceful protest and not considered to be vulgar or profane. Okay, so anyway, that's enough of that one. So you can go through and you can do those. Now for the all important practice quiz. By the way, I always ask my students this. You remember the quiz that you took last week? Both of you remember the quiz? Did you see some stuff that I told you about earlier that was probably going to be on that quiz? Did you? Did you, Jennifer? Yeah, because it's true. Trust me, I'm not going to mislead you. Yeah, it was, yeah. Say, oh, Professor Wright told me about this one. Yeah, it's the same thing for this one. Get ready, get ready, get ready, get ready. All right, so let's. A local resident is suspected of setting off a truck bomb at a religious temple, intentionally targeting parishioners. This is an example of what? Yep, it's domestic because of the fact. Notice they made it. They gave you the language to help you. Excuse me. Carried out by a terrorist within their own country, and to carry out the attack against citizens, government, or thereof. Okay, one more. Let's do. A foreign national living in your community is part of a terrorist organization from another country and intentionally blows up a city hall building to avenge the deaths of others in this country. This is an example of quick. Okay. Yeah, it is. It's international. It fit right out of what I said earlier. One last one. You stop a man that you believe was about to break into a store, but stopped when he saw your marked squad car. You question him and he lies about his name. What will you place him under arrest for? How come you don't put him? How about perjury? Why not perjury? That's it. That's it. I have had so many students to go for perjury, but it is obstructing. It clearly is. It clearly is. He's lying. And so anyway, that's like I said earlier about, that kind of thing. I always have my clients, I used to tell them, I said, guys, when you get arrested, and this was male and female, give your real name. Because two things that happen. Number one, when you're arrested, you're going to be booked. And when you're booked, if you have been in the system before, your prints are there, buddy. It's going to line you up with whoever. But here's where your problem is going to come in first. And as I've seen it happen many a times, where I go for the bond hearing and they call my client up. John Jones, also known as John Smith, known as George Washington, Harold Davis. I'm standing there with my holding my head like, dude, that means you've been in the system. And you're, excuse me, you're tipping off the judge pretty much, you know, that you already, okay, your bond's gonna probably be higher. I didn't say you wouldn't get a bond, those kinds of things. So anyway, that's it for tonight for me. Any questions about anything that I've gone over? Okay. How about code word? Yeah, that's any suggestions, Lynn or Jennifer? See if any of you get it, because I got one right here. Yeah, it's a little long. I mean, that's a good one, but that's long. I don't do that to mess some people up. That's close. That's you're in the right area. How about people that lie under oath? Yay! The key phrase for the day is perjury. That's all you got to give me. But it meant what I just said. So it's something that you don't want to do. Okay. And it could get you in trouble. And then it could get you in trouble in school too as well. Not that you're under oath because you won't be perjury, but there could be some unethical violations. So, but anyway, that's kind of like what plagiarism is, taking my statements and putting your own name on them. You know, you're not under oath because I'm not going to take you in class and say, all right, guys, raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear that you will use your material and only your material and give credit for me if it's me or someone else. No, I'm not going to do that to you. It's a thought though. But all right, guys. Thanks again for hanging out a little longer. Again, I hope that this has been very helpful to you. I hope that you'll have a successful week and take care of yourselves. Watch out for this COVID thing. I've got 3 students so far this quarter, and we're in week 4 that have had to deal with that. And this Delta is no joke. And then I offer my prayers to families who have to deal with that, but also to the people down in Louisiana. If you have any family or friends down there, I don't think I have any students in Louisiana that were affected by this storm. But if you are a student and you are down there, please let your instructors know. Let us know because we will definitely make accommodations to help you in terms of that. Now, don't all right, don't say, you're there and you're all the way up in Wisconsin or Minnesota. No, say no. We had a rainstorm there. Well, anyway, you know what I'm talking about, guys. So you're in criminal justice, ethical, professional, and educated. That's what you got to be with me. Good night. Have a fantastic week. And again, above all, stay safe. 2 more to go. Good night.